Mr. VP over here, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my background is grew up on a farm, a hill farm, cattle and sheep in northwest England. Went over to Australia in my early 20s. I was involved in agriculture over there for a while, crops mainly. Then got into aviation in Australia, moved up to the north of Western Australia, started my flying career in the cattle mustering industry on the big stations, ranches in north of Western Australia. Came over to Canada in 2006, been predominantly based over here, done a variety of work, just helicopter related stuff. So yeah, farming background, aviation, and always been kind of interested in a readiness of being prepared and stuff.
Nice. Now, when you were in northern England, were you dealing with any Highland cattle, or?
We didn't have Highland cattle there. There was neighbors that did. There was kind of the closest ones to kind of a unique breed was a Galloway, a belted Galloway, which was there's a local estate, Ascot Castle. They've got some belted Galloways, but there wasn't any direct Highland cattle in the area.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Now you guys.
Oh, you definitely have some, which is
yes. Oh, cool. Yeah. We like them quite a bit.
So. Yeah, super cool.
Yeah, and you guys are basically around the Vancouver area, eh?
Yeah, that's right.
And you've had to deal with all that flooding there.
Yeah, so that's kind of how our videos started happening. As Mr. VP was doing emergency services, flying the floods, and then we got all these videos, and we're trying to share them with people.
Yeah. Pretty crazy times.
Yeah.
Did you guys have anything damaged in the flooding, or were you stranded for a bit, or were you basically okay out of the area?
Yeah, we were kind of unaffected. There was a water level very close to the house here that was it came up close on a different floodplain to the lower valley, but it got pretty close here. we were okay, but I wouldn't want it to get too much higher, that's for sure.
Yeah. So obviously that's not what got you into prepping. Were there other events in your life that got you into it, or were you kind of always in that mindset?
You start with that one.
Well, it's always been part of our work life as individuals. I used to work mapping, doing making maps up in very remote areas. So all the stuff you'd need in your bag, and always checking and sometimes forgetting critical stuff. And then we did some trips in Nepal and had to compare notes on what gear we had and all the kind of usual emergency survival gear. And so, and then as our lives, progressed with the home life and everything, the cupboards got fuller and fuller and fuller. And then at some point you realize, that whole, what makes you an actual prepper or the preparedness lifestyle. I mean, we've been living it for a while, and then at some point realized that's what we were. So how about you?
Yeah, I think just being like always having the mindset from growing up on a kind of fairly remote property in England, like a farm. I was fortunate enough to have a mother that was always very resourceful for what we had on the property, and grew a lot of our own stuff. We had our own livestock, which were from time to time butchered to put in the freezer, and that kind of transitioned into remote work in Australia to other remote places that I've been, just being mindful of needing extra stuff with you and what that entails, and just kind of rotating that into our own life. And just I don't know, just in case something untoward were to turn up.
Yeah. With the flooding that happened there, was there anything that you decided, anything you learned from that you realized you didn't actually have or might need in the future for some other cases?
One thing here is, because we do have pretty significant river going through the property, and in the kitchen, normally you can't see the river, but we could actually see like waves on the river from the window. That was it, just moving anything out of the area, like any kind of chairs and benches. We had some stuff out in the forested area that we definitely, one of them floated away, but we were able to still save it. But the thing I was thinking about is, we have one road in and out of where we are located, and there were warnings the road was going to be shut down. So, just that reminder that we should always think of our exit strategies from wherever we're located and different options. And we only had one option. Do you have anything?
Also, I think it was the first time for us to kind of be restricted on our fuel consumption at the pumps.
Okay, yeah.
That was directly related to the flooding, whereby essential services, I was able, if need be, to get additional fuel. I was very mindful of just using I think it was 30 liters a day. So I was just topping up for my commute. I was just topping up 30 liters a day, or what I needed, up to 30 liter point. But I think it just highlighted, how vulnerable a system can be. Like we do keep extra fuel at home, at least a full tank of fuel, like in jerry cans for our vehicle. But I think it just kind of highlights how fragile things are when you get into situations like that. We keep extra power sources on hand. We've got multiple generators here, so
Nice.
obviously we fuel for those. But we're pretty self-sufficient. But it does highlight how vulnerable things are when you get into those kind of emergencies.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I just want to say hey to Honey Badger's Homestead. Welcome for coming in. I think I mentioned Bucket List Homestead and Urban Homesteading Channel. Welcome. Urban White Buffalo, thanks for coming in. So obviously you guys are probably the type that keep your gas tanks in your vehicles more than half full, right? You fill up rather than letting it get to empty before you fill up, kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd say for the most part, like, it's just, I think just normal life. Like you could be, getting down towards empty, but I mean, for the most part, I think we try and be, fairly mindful of that, and try and definitely keep it on the plus side of half.
Yeah.
Always have it pointing in an exit direction. Like always have it so, turn it around so you can drive out easily from places.
Nice. Yeah, that's always good too. For you guys too, you mentioned you do a lot of helicopter rescue and medic work and that kind of stuff. Were there any situations in those where you went into a situation and then afterwards you reassessed the gear that you had? Were there any lessons learned from any of those experiences?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, I think, with the medic stuff, always, I do, there's always a lot of talk of the gear, but just accessibility and knowing where everything is in your gear. Because a lot of times, like when you're working at a different job, you're provided with the materials that you need. And, everybody should get there and then take it all apart, know where everything is for access. And to see, because sometimes things are missing that need to be in there. So inventorying and then, physically practicing getting stuff out of those bags for muscle memory purposes. Because, we should all do that. We should all know what we have, where it is. And, things like bandages lose their stick, if, replacing things like that. Yeah, I'll have to think about that one. Do you have any related stuff?
I think specifically a realization for me was when I was doing a bit of work in the Himalayas there in Nepal, and we'd both been out there, a couple of occasions, but this was one of my first trips out there where we're doing some, doing rescue work at higher elevations where, we're reliant on supplementary oxygen whilst flying. And then making the evaluation, look, if we get stuck somewhere, how long is your own oxygen going to last? Because as much as you might not, have a significant issue, you're going to be pretty uncomfortable if you're not acclimated to, 15, 16, 18,000 feet, but you get stuck somewhere. So just additional planning for that was always a big consideration. And then being limited to a degree with what you could pack as emergency supplies, because we were always weight limited at those higher elevations for the performance of the aircraft.
Yeah.
So we had to be very mindful about specific, items in my own pack that I wanted to have on hand that, weren't going to be detrimental to the performance of the mission based on, weight limits.
Did you have to ever shed any gear for it?
He shed me. He dropped me off at like 5,000 meters.
Yeah.
And had to go. Could you want to tell a story? But I was standing there with one other person and told not to walk around too much and that he'd be back because he couldn't actually carry me up there and do the thing and then come back. So he left me there. Do you want to?
Well, that was it really.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it was just, you got to be really mindful of weight at those higher elevations and stuff. But
Yeah.
it just takes a little bit of extra thought. So it's all good.
And that's when all your, trust things come into play. Like, is he going to come back? Is this kind of convenient? So just, yeah. But
that's great. I just saw Guardian Prepping come in, Redbird Farm come in, Tina Ladybug. Thank you guys for joining us. Louis Stromatio, welcome. Glad you guys could join us as well. So you guys probably have like all your gear labeled, right? So once it's in like pouches and organizers and all that, you probably keep a list and labels on them as well, just to make it easier for you. Eh?
Labels, big time. Yeah. Everything is labeled. The list is hard because it needs to be updated, of course. And then that's another step. Do you list everything?
I do in certain circumstances. So I've got a bunch of packs that I keep in my truck. One's like food, shelter, heat, fire, food, shelter, and utilities and stuff. So inside those is basically a white label underneath the clear plastic. So I keep a list of what's in each bag. That way, when I open it, I know what's in there, what I can grab, that sort of thing. And then I've dealt with some medic bags before too, where they have basically Velcro tabs that you can label which pouch is which for certain gear. So makes it much easier when you're in a hurry kind of thing, or in the dark, or that when you're using a flashlight, so you're able to ID stuff specifically. So really helpful then that way. Yeah. And with the did you find any issues coming from Australia to Canada with the rotary wing license? Was it much trouble, or was it pretty much just good to go?
I mean, there's just there's a conversion you have to do, because each country that you're licensed to fly in, you're basically limited to their registration aircraft. So with an Australian license, you'd be limited to Australian registered aircraft.
Oh, okay.
To Canada, I had to convert my commercial license to the equivalent Canadian commercial license, which was a relatively straightforward process. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it doesn't take too long. Just a couple of weeks, bit of training, and then get the exams out of the way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Have you guys changed your opinion and your thought on people's mindset, that kind of stuff when dealing with rescues? For example, at a certain point, do you figure it's the person's responsibility or the person's own fault for going into certain situations unprepared, or knowing there might be a storm or that sort of thing? Do you ever fight with that in such a way that, you know, your life is on the line, I assume, sometimes as well. So you have to remember that they put themselves in that situation. Did you grow up with a different mindset and then change having seen something like that?
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think that's something that we spoke about just a couple of days ago on Grey Man, and I definitely had a mindset when I started doing this stuff, and this is kind of specifically to Nepal in a way. When I was over there, that I kind of had the viewpoint that I was going to be kind of saving the day more than, I don't want to say like a bit of a hero, but that I was going to be the one that would, get there and get these people rescued. And there was one occasion I got into a situation with the aircraft, and luckily I had a spotter with me, one of our ground crew guys, a local Nepalese guy from Kathmandu, and we'd gone up north of Pokhara up towards the Annapurna range to pick up this rescue client. Like, I didn't know who it was. It was just basically just a task, go get it done. So we headed up later in the day to pick up who turned out to be an Asian lady. And we kind of pushed pretty hard to get to where we're going through weather, and then got held up at the pickup point where the helipad that we'd landed at, the people that owned the tea house there were trying to demand money from us for landing there. So we kind of had to try and diffuse that situation, but it kind of delayed us probably 30 minutes to then go back down this quite tight valley. And at one point, the clouds had kind of come up the valley and kind of choked us in a little bit. So we didn't have any visual reference. So we spun the helicopter around and luckily found ourselves a bit of a terrace to land on with the helicopter, and shut down there for a number of hours waiting for it to clear, and then got out just before dark. But at that point, it kind of dawned on me that, the people, as you mentioned there, that get themselves into this position, they've already made a choice about what they want to do with their day, their life, whatever equipment they might have. They've already made the choice to be where they are. If we can get there and help them, that's just a bonus. I don't want to, I'm not going to jeopardize myself, because like you mentioned, they've already made that decision for themselves.
Right.
And this was also for the very much higher stuff when we were doing rescue work for some of the higher peaks. These people, they were getting, hypothermia, they were getting frostbite, whatever they might be getting, pulmonary edema. They'd already made those choices. So yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying there.
So I noticed Guardian Prepper wants to know how to suggest that others work on their British charm and probably their banter as well.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe read some. Guardian's always got funny questions. I keep promising him. I keep promising him that I'll get some photos of my bike, because I know he's a biker. I know he likes his. I think he's got a Yamaha actually.
Yeah. There's lots of video of him doing lots of biking, and it's really cool to see the different areas. So like when I think of Vancouver, when I've been there, I'm thinking like the big redwoods, like massive trees that have been growing there forever. And you come here and you're getting the smaller pine forest with the moss and stuff. And then when I see Guardian's videos, they're kind of like arid conditions, desert, but then you get into some fertile areas, and it's really neat to see the difference in the areas.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
So you guys do a lot of gardening too, and from what it looks like, you do a lot of pumpkin growth.
Well, I think pumpkins are my favorite.
Yeah.
We had about 4 or so varieties last year. We had mini ones and regular sized ones, and then we had Dill's Atlantic Giants, and they were started indoors, and grown and babied and moved around to light, and got them out there, and then they were growing up trees and going different directions, and some of them were growing across rocks. They'd go off cross country, so we got little pillows for them to sit on. And then in a true Canadian way, we had them get taken out by bears and to shreds. But I did process a lot of the pumpkins, so we have a lot of dehydrated pumpkins and a lot of pumpkin puree that's frozen. And then we had kind of all your basic vegetables like radishes, and we had some corn and zucchinis and cucumbers and tomatoes and onions and all that kind of stuff. But I think pumpkins are really fun.
Nice. Do you guys do a lot of preserving from the garden, or more your preps, canned goods, or do you prefer even like the dehydrated, MRE kind of stuff, meals in a bucket or that kind of thing? What's your favorite?
Well, one thing is that because of work travel, we do have a lot of the freeze-dried stuff because it can get used up by having it as backups. There's lots of times where I know you've gone to places and it was impossible to get food right away, so just adding water, and it's lightweight.
Right.
But we definitely have a huge variety of different, like probably more 25 years to freeze dried than a lot of people would have, mostly for that. And then just it's compact to move it around. But then we try to eat fresh out of the garden in the summer. And then we have a lot of regular stuff like cans that you get at Walmart or dollar store. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone pretty heavily into that 25-year stuff lately.
Yeah.
I think the mindset of that is, even if you look at, the cost of things increasing as they are with inflation rates that we're seeing, it's like ammo. You buy ammo 20 years ago for a pack of, 20 rounds, whatever, 243 rounds, you're probably looking at, 10 years ago, $19, $20. They're probably like $36 now. So
yeah.
I kind of look at it, with the 25-year stuff, even if we were going to buy it in 5 years time, so you're into that, 25 years, cut that down to 20 years, it's probably going to be, I don't know, 25, 40% more cost in 5 years from now. So yeah, we've been kind of getting a lot of that lately to kind of bulk up that side of it to, offset some of the other stuff we have. So.
But you rotate it a fair bit, on trips and that kind of stuff, yeah?
Yeah, for sure we do, yeah.
Do you have a favorite?
Say again?
Do you have a favorite type?
I don't know, probably some of the Happy Yak stuff's pretty good.
Mountain House.
Yeah, Mountain House. We've got the vegetarian packs of the Alpine Air ones. Yeah.
But what were you saying? So work times, you didn't have any other?
Yeah. Well, I'd take some of them with me I did a couple of trips over to China in 2019. So I would pack per trip, anywhere up to 15 meals with me, because there was a number of occasions where you just take a bunch of stuff that's just handy to use. You might be super tired at the end of the day. It's inconvenient, to go somewhere. So you'd have a mountain meal or something. So
Nice.
Even now I pack them to work, because it's, you can turn up late to a hotel. It's easy just to pull one of those out, get some boiling water into it. So I rotate them quite a bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
You guys have a pretty good garden that you're working from, eh?
We have 4 zones. One is kind of more in the middle of a forest next door, and I don't know how big it is. But then there's a bunch of raised bed, or what would you call those things? Those raised things?
Yeah, raised
raised
planters,
beds,
yeah.
raised planters, and then
Yeah.
some regular planters, and it's all spread out because part of it was worried about the animals, because we can't possibly fence in everything. So I'm sure it's similar for you guys. We just lose some, but we'll have
Right.
it. We'll have the different stuff in each zone. So if we lose some, we still have it in another zone.
So you figure a bit for the animals, a bit for
Yeah, we get a lot of
bugs, and then
a lot of deer come through. Yeah.
Yeah, and
yeah.
there's yeah, there's a lot of wildlife that we see because we're in sort of a forest environment, and we tried all sorts of stuff, like even coyote urine to keep the deer away.
Doesn't work too well.
No.
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 How do you guys deal with the gardens while you're away? Or have you been home lately? Or have you set up different watering systems or anything like that to help deal with it if you're away?
For the most part, there's normally one of us here.
Yeah.
Of late, yeah, we've kind of been, other than vacation type stuff, but as far as say last growing season was concerned, like there was pretty much one of us here, wasn't there? So it wasn't really an issue. But I think you
Makes it a
could get
little
some
easier.
timers. Can you get some water timers?
Yeah.
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 But yeah, you could just get those automated timing systems are pretty good for the hoses.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand your gardens at all, or do something different with them to be able to can more or preserve more from them? Or is it, are you happy with what you have right now?
Oh, I think there's always a plan for
Yeah.
expansion.
I mean, I'd like to have a really big zone that's completely protected and fenced in from animals, and it's rather than some of the sort of wild gardens that we have, and then we have a little bit of everything. So like that zone over there will get more slug activity, and that one over there will get more deer activity, and where there's certain parts of the property that for some reason the deer, anything I put in a spot will get eaten, but some other location it won't, so we're just trying to get that all figured out.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you said you're a geologist, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you guys go out, do you guys do a lot of camping or overlanding or that kind of stuff at all?
Yeah, so before, in the past, I used to do a lot of remote mapping work. So we'd get, dropped off. We'd be out for weeks or months or long periods of time in the wilderness. We'd have an area to cover. And, that was a lot of really small camps, like 2 people with a tent kind of camps, and then up to bigger camps that had like, 50 people, depend on the level. And then I'm a mom now, so I don't do that right now in my life, but I started doing that kind of work in 2001. So I got quite a bit of it out of my system.
And when you were doing that, did you ever have urges to go prospecting for gold or any other metals or stones, or was that kind of like, too close to work sort of thing?
Well, that's what I was doing for my work. So
Yeah.
I would look for like precious metals, like gold, silver. I looked for uranium, oil, gas, diamonds. One time though, I was mapping. I was doing more of like an academic research mapping, and there was beautiful garnets in the area. The garnets were actually a indicator of the other rocks that were going on. So at nighttime, the garnets were contained in this schist, this really, really soft rock. So they just weather out, and I could just pick them up in the streams. And so I have all these perfect little soccer ball garnets that I want to, one day put into some jewelry or something. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely times where, you do that, but then it's also work. If you're actually looking for gold, you're probably at nighttime not going to be looking for
One
more
to go back out for
all day. We have I could grab one really cool rock that I found, which is a silver tetrahedrite. So it actually showed, we were mapping, we're looking for silver veins. So the rock has you can see a vein of silver in it.
Neat.
So, it'd be exactly how you would mine silver. So, and that was really grassroots stuff. I mean, it was just us walking around with some hammers and that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's cool. But I hear you on, if your job is one thing. Sometimes you're not wanting to do that same thing as a hobby if you've been doing it too long, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did some trips up like northern Canada where I did do gold panning, like on my leisure time. Like I have a gold pan and stuff like that. But yeah, it's literally like sometimes that's what we were doing in the day. So
Yeah. Now, do you guys get out hunting at all? Like you've got lots of deer in the area, but you're probably not in a zone to hunt right there. So do you get out at all for that, or?
No, I haven't done that for a while, to be honest with you. We've got another property further to the northeast BC. That's kind of more conducive to hunting up there, but we haven't really been up there for a
I'm
while.
gonna grab the rock, okay?
Yeah. So we haven't really been much in the way of hunting, and I don't think it'll be favorable in our backyard here to let a round off.
Yeah, a little too close.
Yeah.
So when you got into pew-pews and stuff, where did you develop that interest? Was it UK, Australia, or when you came to Canada?
I missed the first bit of that. When I got into what? Sorry.
Pew-pews.
Oh, right. I started in the UK actually.
Yeah.
More on a 12 gauge level because we do pheasant and duck hunting quite a bit. Shooting.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then that kind of rotated. So I grew up around more so shotguns. Australia, we would actually we would use a lot of firearms for culling on the big ranches there. A lot of animals that were not conducive to being within the breeding herd of the cattle for what the pedigree line that they were interested in. Any of the scrub animals that obviously missed the marking season, so they weren't put through the corrals and obviously castrated as the males, as you know, they're kind of a hindrance to your breeding program. So we would often, after we go around and muster the cattle in, we'd go back with the aircraft and throw a shooter in the side, or two pilots would go out and just alternate shooting and flying.
Okay.
So we do a lot of aerial shooting. So that was kind of one of the things we do there for a number of different creatures, whether it be donkeys, camels, pigs, cattle, horses, you name it. So
right.
Yeah, so it was pretty big part of the program over there.
Nice.
And we'd have to do a lot of culling of pigs as well because of the feces and stuff that they would leave in the water courses for the cattle.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Ouch.
Yeah.
So Urban White Buffalo has a question. Do you guys train in orienteering, map reading, compass work? Do you do a lot of that, or are you guys relying on your GPS half the time?
Well, so I'm a geological scientist. I spent 10 years in university for that. I taught some university stuff, and one of the main pivotal parts of being a geological scientist is making maps. So I would go to these areas a lot of times, and we'd physically map on foot. So that's a fundamental part of making a map is understanding contours, understanding tape, compass, using different basic tools. So you have to be able to do that. Now, when I went through school, we had GPS, but we had to know all the stuff, how to do everything from a grassroots level. And that was always a worry. But everyone should be trained in map reading, basic stuff like understanding a hill versus a valley, all that kind of stuff. So it was a really big, important thing that all the students knew how to do that. And they do field schools to learn how to read maps, make maps. So it wouldn't call it orienteering so much, but it's the same thing. If you give us a compass, we can get around and that kind of thing. Do you want to add about your orienteering?
Yeah, definitely not orienteering for me, but just kind of more so when I started flying, it's been a couple of decades now. We didn't really have much in the way of GPSs then at the beginning, so certainly nothing that's going to give you a a screen that's going to show you much as far as detail is concerned that you'd see nowadays. So a lot of it was definitely map work, dead reckoning. So it just kind of got taught, I guess, at flight school how to kind of orientate yourself with the map. And my dad was always kind of a bit of a map guy too, so he kind of taught me a bit as a kid, I guess.
I have the
So
rock.
you guys, nice.
If you want to see. So this is really cool. It's from Northwest BC in an area that's known as the Golden Triangle. So there's a lot of silver mining type exploration work up there. And if you look carefully, you can see it's like gray. It goes all the way around because it's actually a silver. It's called silver tetrahedrite, and it's a silver vein. So
there we go.
We often think of gold veins, and you can imagine how those look. Well, this is a silver vein, so visible silver. Because a lot of times the silver itself is disseminated really fine into the rock and needs to be, mined out of that. But this is actually shows it, and in person it looks even more magnificent.
That's pretty cool.
So, yeah. This is one of my favorite rocks. There's little piles of rocks around.
Do you throw any of them out in the garden, or do you keep them in the house?
I started being selective, definitely, because it was getting ridiculous.
So with the orienteering and that kind of thing, you obviously make sure you set your compass before you go out, say. What other skills would you guys suggest that people should be looking at? Like, what kind of, definitely I'd say like CPR courses, map reading's a good one. Is there other stuff that you guys would suggest that you see people need to know more about?
Well, I would really love if every person, before they buy a single piece of first aid gear, they take a minimum 2 full day course, a standard Red Cross standard level minimum. Of course, like if they could take a level 2 or level occupational level 3 or EMR or something is better. But a 2-day course, and then start talking about equipment, start talking about tourniquets after that, or I've seen some videos about those choking. They're like a vacuum thing for choking and stuff. Have those conversations after getting the training.
Right.
That's just one thing that, and I'm sure, sounds like you've had experience with the medical stuff and probably.
There's a few courses, and the one I definitely suggest is one I took was Stop the Bleed, which is a really good course too. I've got friends who have a company called CTOMS in Canada. You might have heard of it, but if anyone's looking for more advanced medical training, they're definitely a good resource for that as well.
And what about courses or learning for you?
Well, I think it's easy for people to acquire stuff, if they do have the resources to do it. But a lot of people are not, in my view, are not stress tested. So they can, you can have all of the stuff that you can, purchase online and do a lot of research. But unless you've ever been stress tested with stuff that, as an individual, you might have the stuff, but you might not be in the mindset to be able to use it in a stressful situation. I'm not too sure what examples people can use to stress test themselves, but I think being mindful of, it's good to have the equipment, the knowledge, but then also be able to, physically get yourself mentally over a barrier if you're in a stressful pinch, to be able to act on what you need to do.
And you also did the trail running, so fitness would play a big part in all of that as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, fitness is, of course, not accessible to everybody. There's different barriers. There's, disabilities. There's challenges. Some people just literally don't have time to do it, and that's a thing too. But If a person does have access to that possibility, it is a good prep. It's a good thing. I know Titan Preparedness Channel talks about it a lot, of the 10-mile challenge of trying to take their bug out bag and walk with it. Because if something happens and we are able to be fit, we can help the other people who are maybe less able to be fit to get them out, or carrying a person, all that stuff is hard.
It's huge, especially when the person's not helping you whatsoever.
Yeah.
To try and move a totally limp body is not as easy as moving someone who's actually helping you a little bit or somewhat conscious as well.
Yeah, I used to do quite a bit of rafting in the Grand Canyon, and even stuff like flipping back over a boat that has flipped over. That's like really, you need to be strong to do something like that, and it takes a lot of people and a certain technique to make it work. So just any way to, I know Guardian's Instagram has lots about fitness, so maybe we can all check that out.
Nice. And with that too, what I've seen too a lot of is people packing bug out bags with stuff that I want to say they haven't carried a lot of, or the mindset is different from what they need to pack. It's one of those where people definitely have to get out and use it, carry it, get used to it, dig through their bag for stuff, make use of it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and just practice using the gear, and we do enjoy camping and stuff, and just try and use whatever you have. Or I know some people talk about having a lights out weekend, or people who maybe, I can see in the comments, it sounds like there's lots of people who've worked in the army, or a lot of people have that experience, but some people don't. Maybe they've never been camping, so finding a way to use some of their equipment on a weekend or something just to test it out.
Yeah. Is there any gear that you guys have seen that absolutely horrifies you? Whether it be something that someone packed, or, you've seen somewhere that you want to slap them upside the head and say, just don't.
Well, one of the big things is lack of people not wanting to wear certain safety gear because it's not cool or it doesn't look good. But a big thing is, safety glasses, because, I know somebody who had a little stick just smack them in the face and they lost use of one of their eyes. Or I had, there's somebody that broke a piece of rock with a sledgehammer, and the rock went as a projectile right into their eyeball. And because they didn't wear the safety gear. So that's more of like a lack of equipment. And
right.
I have seen some gear being suggested on, Instagram and stuff that's like a shortcut, in my opinion, to actual skills. And that bothers me a little bit too, because some of the gear hasn't actually been, properly tested by a governing body. So maybe getting the skills first, and then if you have those skills and then you assess you want that shortcut piece of equipment, then maybe you'll have the knowledge to make that decision. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I can't really think of anything that would be cringeworthy at the minute.
It's a good point though about getting the knowledge firsthand, so you know what the equipment should be capable of doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like someone going and choosing a tractor, but they haven't driven a tractor.
Yeah.
I'm just mentioning that because I saw your tractor video.
Yeah, it's taken a lot of years to get good with the tractor. A lot of damaged tractors before that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. What was that? I just had one too. But I'd like the glasses, because it's one thing, it seems silly, but I've lost count of how many times I've poked myself in the eye walking through the woods. And it's those little tiny branches that you don't see
Yeah.
that either you push them and they flick back at you, or you turn and look at something and it pokes you, or those little suckers get you every time.
Hey, maybe we should all normalize wearing safety glasses just out in the woods, and maybe make a big video with everybody making them be cool again. Or I guess I shouldn't say again, because I've seen this so many times, like people breaking something and going like this. And then another one is the chainsaw helmet.
Yeah.
Face shield.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I find if I'm using my chainsaw, I'm almost always putting on my helmet. It's very rare that I don't put my helmet on when I'm using the chainsaw, whether it be due to the earmuffs because I want to try and keep what hearing I have left, or it's got the shield for my face, so I'm not getting those wood chips in my eyes. I'm not poking myself in the face with a branch. If a branch comes down on my head, it's there as well. If the chainsaw kicks back, at least I have a bit of protection that way. So it's one of those, I always recommend that. I got to get used to wearing the pants, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I actually am impressed. Mr. VP over here always puts gloves on to do anything. Like moving boxes out of a vehicle, those gloves go on, and it's nice to see someone so diligent about that. The gloves is a big one.
Oh, it's huge too, because it's amazing how many just cuts, slivers, scrapes, and that kind of stuff you can get.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Doing anything like that. And I've seen courses too where, basically the survival courses where people are using rocks and flint for chipping, or using rocks for bashing trees and trying to hammer them into the ground. And it's, one slip and you're getting stuff coming back at you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you guys have anything you wanted to add at all, or?
How did you choose to have those types of cattle?
Oh, the Highlands. We basically, my background is, the one line of my family is Scottish. We've got a bunch of Scottish family and all that. So that was basically one reason. So we just had an affinity for them in that regard. And then for us too, we wanted something that was extremely hardy for our winters. We don't have a lot of grass pasture, so we wanted something that was able to just, eat the moss, eat the pine trees, that kind of stuff as well. So the Highlands fit into that almost perfectly, since they're basically, I'd say, like a survival cow. So they grow slow, they eat moss and trees and crap food. They've got the big hairy coat, so in the horrible weather, they're totally fine dealing with it. We didn't have to build the barn at all. We've just built a shelter, and they're happy. So that was kind of our thinking to get into them.
Yeah, they look happy in your videos.
Yes, yeah, they're we think they're happy anyway, from what we can tell. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a few of them, it looks like now, huh?
Yeah, we've got we've got the two mums, and the one mum, when we got her, we had Snow White, which she's one of the white ones that has the kind of little horns. And then this year she had Sirloin, which is the little guy who's white as well, with like no horns and just a bit smaller. But Freya, our other cow, was supposed to be pregnant at the same time when we got the bull. And we did the pregnancy tests on them both. We thought they were both pregnant. And then it turns out Freya was not pregnant. So that was kind of a quite disappointing time, because we, it's one thing if, you put 40 eggs in the incubator and 2 don't hatch or whatever. It's not as big a deal, but you try and get 2 cows pregnant and one's not, and you only have one. It's kind of a huge impact on our future plans. So, yeah.
Are they relatively easy to like, is the neighboring properties that have highlands around you? Like, how far away did you need to source them from?
We had there's actually a farm that I want to say is 45 minutes from us, but they do what were they doing? They were doing all beef cows, if I remember correctly. It was everything they bred and raised, as it was selling as fast as they could raise it. So they also didn't really have any that they were totally hands off as well. So they don't go out and pet them. They don't feed them treats or anything like that. So they sent us over to another place that's about 2 hours away. And that place is where they got a bunch of their cows from, and they deal with them a little more. So, they keep more of them around for the breeding. They like petting them sometimes, depending on the cows, and we'll go out and socialize with them. So, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
What did I see? Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the hair and the horns that, kind of give it that rustic, can deal with anything kind of look to them. And, the one thing we didn't have to worry about was the weather or any predators with them, because they know how to use those horns if they want to.
Yeah.
We have some themed stuff around of those cows, because when we had a newborn, we did a big trip around Scotland.
Nice.
So we saw lots of them and then brought some things back.
Nice. I remember having a tea towel that was my grandmother's, and it had a big hairy Highland on it. And, I think it had, if I remember correctly, it had basically the outline of Scotland and some city names and that kind of stuff. And that kind of also got me, interested in them as raising them.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Oh, there's a dad joke. Ice cleats are always nice to have, especially in freezing rain and that kind of stuff. We usually have deep enough snow here that when it does, it forms a crust rather than a specific layer. But there's been times here where it's been sketchy. They do. They are great moms, which is really nice. Yeah.
So if you could,
are you guys?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
How many would you have if you could have your choice? How many would you have?
Technically, we're allowed to have 6 here.
Oh, yeah.
So, which is fine for us because we don't have the space or anything like that just yet to have more. So we're looking at building some more pastures for them, but I don't think we'd go over 6 anyway, just for ourselves. So, yeah. Apparently we can have really anything we want here. There's a farm the other side of town that has wapiti elk, and some other farms that have different stuff. But in the bylaws for the city is they said basically anything except you can't have emus and ostrich. So that was kind of like, who did what to have that written into the bylaws?
That's true.
Yeah. Especially in northern Quebec, it's like, yeah, that's not something you see around here. So, yeah. Are you guys thinking about getting animals at all, or is it kind of maybe if you'd move to a different property or something?
Yeah, I think it would have to definitely be on a different property. But yeah, I mean, there's been talk that we might at some point do a bit of a jump across the pond back to some family land. So
Yeah.
if we did, we'd certainly be getting some more animals at that point. We're kind of in a flux right now. We might be moving a little bit further up north. We're not too sure right now. If so, there's a bit more property up there, so we could branch into some animals for sure. We'll just have to see.
Nice.
But I think if space allowed and we were situated in one place for a while, definitely there'd be a menagerie, I think, of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. No big birds. Not allowed.
50. Wow.
Oh, that'd be crazy. I don't think I could handle that. I did. Yeah. For us, I think we definitely don't want to go into anywhere where we're having to worry about selling the cows. Like if we have to sell one maybe or two maybe, that might be okay. But otherwise, we'll kind of do it as raise for ourselves and, put one cow in the freezer for a year and we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty slow maturing, aren't they? So
Yeah, for most cows, I think it's about a year to raise them, and then harvest. For the Highlands, you're looking at about 2 years.
yeah, for sure.
So,
at least, yeah.
Yeah. So I know you guys have to kind of on a time limit, so we'll probably wrap this up and let you guys get on your way. Unless there's any further questions that anyone has at all.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming. Yeah, it was great. I love picking people's brain on that kind of stuff. There's so many other questions I was thinking of, but it's like, no, I'll save that for like kind of private because, some get too personal and that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, good for sitting around the campfire and chatting and, Oh, Bridget just showed up.
Oh, nice.
They were watching Vikings tonight, and I think we've already watched the series a couple times, and now we're watching it again. And I think tonight was the one where Rollo and Gisela get married. So it was a good one.
Well, that's great.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'll let you guys get going, and thanks again so much for joining us or joining me. It was so great.
Yeah, thanks for having us. And,
thanks for having us on.
Yeah.
No problem. We'll definitely be talking to you soon, and we'll talk to you later. And everyone, thanks so much for joining us. We will talk to all of you later too. Take care, guys.
Bye-bye.